it's hard for retailers to ingest. That's creating a huge amount of stuff you didn't know about the customer and about the shopping mission or journey or whatever it's going to be. So that hyper personalization sounds great, but the reality, as you said, if we roll the clock forward 6 to 9 months, could people really take all that information they've just created with this new Gen AI hyper personalization and plug that into some of their standard decision making processes? I think that's the real challenge.
With Matt Hopkins, who's head of global retail at Board International. And we were just talking a moment ago about the fact that we're both going to be attending NRF in a week or so. And the whirlwind of experiences and faces and the fast-paced handshaking that we're about to go through. And the fact that we have a handful of mutual friends. So I'm sure we'll be passing each other in the aisle. But all that to say, Matt, thanks for joining me. Really looking forward to this conversation.
No, you're welcome, Mike. Thanks for having me on the podcast again.
For sure. So I think maybe it would be helpful just for context for our listeners, if you wouldn't mind explaining what Board International is and does, because you've got a pretty healthy client roster, I think is getting a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, so Board have been in the planning game sort of nearly 20 years. We describe ourselves as an intelligent planning solutions provider. So we help globally 2,000 plus organizations to plan smarter, get more value from the data, extract insights, which really are driving better business outcomes. So through a planning lens, we work with industry leaders across multiple industries. But to give you some flavor, we work with Coca-Cola, H&M, Burberry, Toyota, and some leading brands. So very much focused on business outcomes through better planning, and I look after the retail side of that go-to-market. It's a SaaS platform, a SaaS solution. So it sits on top of your core enterprise systems, your CRM systems, ingests that data in a way that's more friendly. So in my life, retail, that's making the data accessible to the fingertips of a demand planner, to a merchandiser. And it's really getting people off spreadsheets. So, I mean, in retail, 50%, something like that, use spreadsheets still. If you think about how customers behave now and how much retail's changed, even post-COVID, spreadsheets are really not very flexible and agile enough to keep pace with the customer. So we're really in the business of elevating all your data into one place and making it, some common intelligence that people that make decisions can act on.
Are there certain stacks or technology families that Board plays well with in particular, or is it a completely kind of stack agnostic?
It's open. We have a strong relationship with Azure, Microsoft, excuse me. So they're a key sort of partner with us in terms of technology partner. But yeah, we work with most flavors and have done. We have 2,000 plus customers we've deployed over and against most things.
Yeah, you've seen it all.
Seen it all.
Or a good chunk of it. So I was intrigued by some of the early communication we had between our teams here.
Yeah.
I don't think I should call them predictions because that kind of infers that it's something that might possibly happen somehow.
Yep.
Yet with Board, because of what you do for a living, because of the insights I'm sure you have access to that not many people do, when this came across my desk, I thought, well, this is really going to be interesting because you have a unique perspective and it's a data-based, experience-based perspective. So
yeah.
If you don't mind, I want to just take a high level and read through essentially the headline for this, but I'd love to just kind of unpack them with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Number one, generative AI will transform how retailers get insights from their inventory management systems. I personally don't think, if you'll permit me just a moment to editorialize, I don't think that one surprises anybody. I mean, it's one of those facts. On the other hand, how that gets worked out is a complete mystery. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think with generative AI, it's, for me, it's AI. I've been working with 10 plus years with AI. The generative is just another label. But 2024, I think, if we go back to not predictions, but likely, I think the direction of travel, I think it will be a breakthrough year. Sounds a bit cliche, but given the sort of sentiment from the CXOs around really investing, it's on top of agendas. It solves lots of really difficult problems. And again, I'm going to speak very much with a retail lens because that's all I've done for 30 years of my career. But if you look at kind of some of the traditional problems in retail and some of the emerging problems in retail, generative AI, it really is a great solution to kind of get on top of some of these problems. Some using traditional data that retailers have always had, like just doing a better job of getting insights from your point of sale, the stuff that goes through the till, and getting more insights and more understanding and root cause. It's very good at that. Or just making things slightly more automated, more efficient. But I think what really helps in terms of going back to that point you made around how it will help inventory is just aligning some of the decisions to what customers do. So if you take a step back, in retail, there's kind of a big gap between the truth about customers, which is, if you take you and I, the actual things we want to do with our shopping missions when we go and buy something, there's probably a meaning behind that. And there's also the assumptions you make. And as you said earlier with the introduction about board, we do everything with our customers on a sort of data decision intelligence basis. So understanding a bit more about what really drove that transaction means you can get less assumptions out of your business. And a lot of retailers have entered 2024 with excess inventory because that truth about the customer and the assumptions you had in your plan about the customer, plus as a dollop of Red Sea disruption and Suez Canal and some of the other things that are definitely going to happen in the next 6 months, means your plan's wrong. It doesn't survive first contact with the enemy. It never does. But most retailers run on assumptions and guesses. So I think Gen AI for me, and if you take the lifeblood of a retailer, which is inventory, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. If you just take imagery in the middle and put Gen AI around the use cases around the outside of inventory, you can make it more aligned to where people shop and how they shop and when. Buy online, pick up in store, getting the right products that people really want in that location. So not holding a ton of inventory for people that are not interested in rotary washing lines in the middle of a city because you can't hang your washing out. I see that all the time. I see retailers doing sort of blanket global pricing, global blanket product offers. And the data's there, and Gen AI works in a way which really allows you to get a bit more precise at scale. And that comes down to, if you think about it, if I'm a retailer with 600 stores and 40,000 products, it's very hard for a planner or a buyer or anyone to make an informed decision on that scale. So I think what we'll see this year, and go back to your point about inventory, is we'll see Gen AI, a couple of use cases really helping with that. One, in terms of dealing with the inventory you have, which means putting it in the right place at the right time so it sells through in an optimal way. And second will be preventing you from making poor decisions when you're sourcing a product, you're buying a product, and also understanding and predicting the demand for that product. So using new demand signals like trend, TikTok influencers, weather, these large language models and that are very good at ingesting much more data than traditional retail data sets. And when you add that to a decision around what you're going to buy, where you're going to put it, you end up with something a bit more aligned to what customers are probably going to do to you and to your retail brand.
FinFair Connect drives incrementality to data-driven loyalty platforms. With over 15 million consumers using their services, they're one of the leading personalized offers platform in the UK, US, and Australia, providing a one-stop solution for open banking, card-linked, affiliate offers, and gift cards. As part of FinFair Inc., which provides modern expense management solutions to SMBs, FinFair Connect is literally transforming the payment-linked offer space by creating full, self-service, white-label portals for advertisers and publishers, thus enabling advertisers to reach hundreds of publishers via one portal, saving time and, of course, money. Check them out at connect.finfair.com. I'd like to pull that apart just a little bit further and talk about technological readiness, if you will.
Yeah.
I just made up that term, but essentially, there are I think everybody's out there scrambling to figure out what they can do with AI. There are a
Yep, yep.
billion vendors out there with really cool AI driven gadgetry, and some of it's really powerful, some of it's just eye candy. But with the scramble and the awakening of the corporate IT world and the marketing world and the operational world and supply chain world to what AI can do, what does board look for in terms of a company's ability to bolt this new technology on? Is it because there has to be something more than just, hey, we
Yeah,
have a need, find us the plug for that hole.
yeah. I think when we work with retailers from sort of very nascent, so very small, fast growing, retailers through to sort of very large, fashion retailers such as, Burberry. And they'll have very different states of data and readiness. But what is true in there, and what applies to both, is what we typically listen for, and what we've seen work well in terms of people actually getting their arms around AI. It is looking at kind of two sort of dimensions. One is understanding the value of that use case and having some prioritization around it, meaning what's the most impactful thing that you could do around better predicting customer behavior. And in AI, forecasting's been around for a while. You can add some element of probabilistic forecasting to your current and existing systems with minimum effort. You can add new things you didn't know into that data set, and you can get some more insights, but also get more precise. So having a sense of value. So, is that increased revenue? Are you trying to get increased efficiency? If you have hundreds of thousands of employees at store level, or you have a large team of planners at head office, so you're looking for increased revenue metrics, increased efficiency. Are you going to better manage risk? So if you think about AI in the context of supply chain, you're looking for capabilities that de-risk some of your decisions about where you buy from, including things like high probability of disruption, for example. And you can go back to that example I used with Red Sea. And then there's some soft values, like non-financial values, like just gains around employee satisfaction and productivity and things like that. So that's the value side. And then there's the feasibility side, which you mentioned. So that's the technical feasibility, meaning can I just take something as a data as a service, data science as a service sort of platform, and then just that and just augment what I have? And that can be quite easy. And again, I'll pick on forecasting because that's something a lot of retailers can do quite quickly. There's internal readiness for sure. I mean, do you need to recruit and build a team of data scientists, and do you onboard them? They're very expensive. Probably don't want to work in retail, all of them. They want to work somewhere else. So internal readiness is key as well, because you're doing new things. And then there's the external readiness as well. So we don't want to lose sight of the fact that some customers do not want all the shiny AI, AR, and that kind of stuff. But there are some very good wins out there. So, for example, if I focus again on that external readiness, what helps the customer? There's been best fit algorithms around for some time now in fashion, if you use fashion as an example. So just moving away from those kind of standard global sizing, curves, that allows you to kind of really, one, do a better job with the customer, give them products that fit them all the time and styles that they can start working with you on. But also there's the ability to kind of like tighten up a bit on things like returns. So we mentioned inventory at the start. Just getting a better job of sizing, using some of these algorithms for best fit technology, means you're going to have the right sizes and right products. And one of the biggest drivers of returns is people basically looking at effectively bracket buys, which is a term meaning I'm not sure this is going to fit me, so I'm going to buy size small, medium, large, and see what fits and then return it. So the impact on that is twofold. One, there's inventory to process, there's transactions they're going to cost you, it's cost to serve. And actually, there's an ESG component now. So just getting returns sorted through AI means you're going to have less stock moves, less logistic moves, all of those have quite high impact on your CO2 as a retailer. So I think just one example there, but I think external readiness is a really important lens. So just to summarize, I think bringing the value of the use case and the feasibility, bringing those two things together, where people are doing that and have a good sense of what those two things are, means they're probably driving in the right direction.
Right. You touched on this a moment ago, but I think it's worth exploring a little bit further. One of the points you made is that retailers will shift from traditional seasonal planning to a more dynamic,
Yep.
always on approach. Um, Finally, but the industry's been moving towards that for some time.
Yep.
But as I'm sure you're aware, technologically, it was just out of reach.
Yep.
Yeah. So is it board's view that because of AI enablement, that now this thing that had been just out of reach is now within reach, and therefore retailers will probably start doing that, or are there other factors involved?
Yeah, I think they have to. So if you sort of think about seasonal planning, guessing what people want 6 months out, um, committing to that inventory, committing to that buy, and then managing the products that didn't sell well. And if you take the rough rule of thumb, 50% of new products fail. There's a huge win for retailers to start using other things to inform what a good new product is and when it should be introduced. So really, if you think again through the sort of Gen I use cases, that means potentially co-collaboration with customers. That's something you can do with Gen I. Would you buy this product if it looked like this at this price point? And I think product co-collaboration, bringing customers into that very early stage of planning, is totally doable with Gen AI. And again, you're just taking, again, I mentioned assumptions before, just taking some of the guesswork away. And interestingly, I was looking this week at social commerce and retailers trying to integrate more of the social thing into the full kind of customer journey. In fashion, again, picking on fashion, but they have sample sales, which is literally getting rid of the samples they've bought for new seasons that are planned. And I think there's one TikTok influencer that literally got one of these samples and then had like 1 million views. Now that's a great data set. That's a great insight into how that product's going to perform months before it's going to launch. So I think bringing social commerce in, bringing customers into that product co-collaboration is very and eminently doable with some of the things you can do in Gen AI. There's ways of synthesizing new products with virtual reality and things like that. So you can use more synthetic data than you could have done before. And again, that just augments your current process. We're not talking about throwing away very traditional merchandise planning processes. You're talking about augmenting them with some of this technology. So yeah, I really think social commerce, I think opening up product co-creation are probably two of the areas I think retailers can get much better at kind of moving away from these big place your bet seasonal type planning events.
It would be great fun to reconnect in 6 or 9 months and just to see how your predictions went. Not to put you on the spot, but it's
Yeah.
always fun to see in a big picture. And by the way, I don't think you could argue with any of the points you're making. They're all, I think, very logical once you kind of pull them apart and see why. But maybe the question we want to answer in 9 months is how well retailers are adjusting to these new realities.
Yeah, and I think just to add with all those examples we've just talked through, is it's our retailers are spending a huge amount on digital strategy. They're building this digital core, which means they can serve the full customer journey from need research buy all the way through to kind of service. Have a full digital offering across that. What we'll see in 2024 is hyper personalization, which means you're going to get really specific about what you present and offer your customers as they search and interact with your brand. It's hard for retailers to ingest. That's creating a huge amount of stuff you didn't know about the customer and about the shopping mission or journey, whatever it's going to be. So that hyper personalization sounds great, but the reality, as you said, if we roll the clock forward 6 to 9 months, could people really take all that information they've just created with this new Gen AI hyper personalization and plug that into some of their standard decision making processes? I think that's the real challenge.
I do too. I do too. I'm recalling a conversation I had with somebody this is probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago, even a company here in the US that specialized in personalization at scale for retail.
Yeah.
And candidly, the guy said, off the record, you can't use my name and you certainly can't use my company here. But he said at that point, the state of technology meant that if you wanted to hyper personalize, like everybody has wanted to for some time, that, to quote him, the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's too expensive to
Yeah.
get to that level of granularity to make anything work.
Yeah.
And maybe that's changed.
Yeah. I think it's been sort of, when I started in retail, there's always this phrase of, data rich, analytically poor. And if you kind of take Gen AI and 2024 and you add that to the mix, does that still hold up as a statement? Maybe. So as you say, some of these things get nullified and kind of the value decreases because you just can't plug it into manual processes or spreadsheets, or the systems are disconnected. And as you'll know, with retailers, actually they're very siloed in the way they make decisions. So collaboration, I think, as a prediction for 2024 is really top of the agenda. So just being able to, if you have a full suite of data that is end to end on a customer journey, for example, there's probably lots of things internally, silos, data silos, decision silos, that are going to stop you, basically executing against that.
So I sit on the sidelines. That's my role here. I don't execute anything, but I've
It's
listened
a
to
good place
people
to
who are
be.
tasked. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm the perpetual bridesmaid in these things. I'm never the bride, which is fine, by the way. One of the points you made earlier on, uh, and we've had separate conversations about this, was that consumers will no longer tolerate greenwashing from the fashion industry. And we've written a lot, we've talked to a lot of people in the CX space as it relates to retail about ideas of authenticity for your brand. And greenwashing always comes up as like, I can't believe somebody would do that. And why should consumers tolerate that? On the other hand, some of it might be a genuine effort to do the right thing, but didn't quite go far enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think, no more greenwashing is quite a big statement, but I think what it really means now is a lot of retailers are switching that into, more of a purposeful, retail agenda. So bringing the brand promise and aligning that and integrating it. So the crux of it is putting, sustainability, the impact, CO2 impacts at the heart of this digital core. And as I said earlier, it can be a bit of a sidecar. So you have all the operational decisions you make about where to buy from, what boat to put it on, what airplanes put it on, how to truck it, how to put it on the train. But it's typically not integrated to the CO2 impact. So one of the first things that's going to really stop greenwashing is getting the people that really own these decisions around sourcing product, buying product, moving product, actually having that sort of third dimension, which is it cost? Is it time? Is it CO2? And when you bring those things together, you're starting to, by default, operate in a bit more effective way. I think a lot of retailers now are trying to sort of build a bit of a roadmap to support ESG more particular. And I think the first thing is the customer. I think retailers are kind of on the hook here to help customers make more judicious decisions about what they buy and where they buy it from. And that means better product information, where they source it from. So there's a lot of data needed to kind of really build out some of these products about the impact, denim, water consumption, whatever else. But also retailers are also looking at, I think 70 to 80% of CXOs I was reading are now saying that they will be impacted in retail by legislation this year. So it's quite real. So we've definitely moved from the what to the how. And I think the key thing for me will be, you know, getting the product information, getting your customer kind of locked in to that sort of decision making. Can you help them better make decisions? And actually, I was looking at an interesting data point from McKinsey. Products that have ESG claims have a 1.7 percentage point improvement in sales versus products that don't. So there's profitability, and think about retailers, their mission is profitability. So having that better data is actually more profitable now, and with Gen Z and millennials, it's not really an option. So I think the roadmap for me is put CO2 at the core of that decision making. Boards does that, and we can help retailers from the strategic plan right down to the sort of product plan attach CO2 to kind of some core sort of standard traditional decisioning. There's the more obvious things like operating stores. If you have a huge amount of bricks and mortar estate, you need to run those more efficiently. So there's some things you can do there. Low carbon logistics, air freight versus sea freight, the amount of moves you do. I think 25-30% of retailers' emissions are in supply chain, and it's in the bit buying it in and landing it into country to distribute it. So, there's some real focus there that retailers need to put, but there's also some quick wins as well. And I think just sort of sourcing. And actually interesting, we talked about Gen AI earlier. I think Gen AI is going to have a huge role in actually helping retailers get some of these new data points and actually building some of the decision frameworks, these new decision frameworks, because it will involve more data, and you want some level of automation and some ability to really trade off, a better margin versus less CO2 or whatever it's going to be. So I think Gen AI will be a big factor in this as well.
It's going to be interesting to watch. You've prompted another 2,000 questions, I think, just based on this conversation. But I'm thinking about a conversation I had with somebody else it's not a retail thing, but she is a consultant to the airline industry, trying to help them navigate basically their ESG initiatives, specifically the E there, and they're looking at technologies and even messaging that can help consumers kind of navigate decisions they make in terms of, what do I purchase? This flight here that may cost a little less, but a little bit more, and it's got a lower carbon footprint. And testing out all kinds of those kinds of psychological paths. What they found early on was it didn't matter. If I'm here for the price, and I don't really know what a carbon footprint looks like. I don't know what CO2 emissions look or smell or taste like. Therefore, I'll take my $20 cheaper fare. But it's a journey, and it's encouraging that even though the early returns are still not overwhelmingly clearly positive, it's still forward movement.
And I think there's a lot of tech now that can really create a kind of different retail operating model, especially in retail's case. So a lot of advanced retailers now that have data science and have invested, they run their businesses on a much more probabilistic basis. So when I started, it was much more frequency of sale. Now it's probability of sale. And they can start adding those probabilities to kind of have a more cognitive procurement function. So the probability of this being a more low impact route, if I ship it, is probably available to them now. So I think just sort of leveraging some of the advances that are made just on things like forecasting, where there's probabilistic elements, means you're going to just be able to sort of cut down some of the sort of false moves around trucking stock and moving stock.
So if you're willing, I would love to see if we could set up a follow-up conversation in 6 or 9 months, just to address these topics and see how we feel. Rephrase that. See how you feel the retail world is responding to them, because I think every one of these is really important. Every one of them is certainly on retailers' radars, but moving forward on all fronts can be tricky, as you know.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think there is kind of a bit of a sort of half-term progress check we should definitely do on some of these predictions, as you said. But yeah, I'm really keen to see how some of these, top of these things that have made the top of the CXO agenda get executed. So yeah, I look forward to it.
Well, then, as they say, my people will be in touch with your people. We'll make it happen.
Okay,
Well, Matt
brilliant.
Hopkins, thank you so much for your time and your insights. It is a ton of fun and hugely insightful, and I think really important. So thanks.
No, pleasure. Thank you.